And if it's comfortable, I invite you to let the knees come a little bit wider. I just really like having this wider, almost like triangle of support, but do what feels most comfortable to you. And then place the hands on the lap and take a couple of seated cat-cows, using the inhale to push the shins down, lengthening the spine from the ground up. And then using the exhale to gently hollow the body out. So you're rounding and push the hands down, and notice how the pushing of the hands allows you to get a little more of that suction of front edge to back edge. And then slow down your movement and flow with your own breath, and let the movement come from the ground up, so that pushing into the hands, pushing into the legs helps inspire the unfolding of the spine. And the next time you round, pause there and take a couple of breaths and notice the different qualities of the inhale and exhale in this rounded form. I really love feeling how the inhale helps me expand more through the back of my body. And the next time you exhale, let your focus drop down into the navel and let go of any grip you have on the next movement we're about to take. Start to push the legs down into the floor, lift the hips, and allow the spine to gently stack. Allow the hands to float. You can parallel the legs a little bit more, and the arms just follow that movement. And then we're going to try that again. So come back down to kneeling. Go into the rounded spine with the exhale, pushing the hands forward, feeling at the center of the abdomen. And then use your inhale to push down into the legs and let the rest of the body respond to that downward push without forcing or even telling it where to go, just seeing what happens. There is a sense of that natural movement that you don't have to create. Do this a couple of times on your own. And each time you come into the rounded shape, this is sort of the moment where you set that foundation of feeling strong and supported. You're setting your intention, but then you let everything be set in motion without too much grip on what it looks like. This is a really great metaphor for our intention setting for the new year. Babaji calls seeing what's possible, and it's always better than how we would create it for ourselves. So have that moment of almost like letting go of expectation and just following the natural flow of the breath and the movement of the body. And then we'll come back down to kneeling. You can leave your blanket where it is just for convenience. Place your blocks over to the side and turn to your left, gently making your way onto the belly, just so we can wake up the shoulders and the glutes a little bit before we get into our sequence. So let's start with hands underneath the shoulders, forehead to floor. Take a moment to land and feel held by the earth. And then glide the hands forward, stretching hands and feet long, letting the whole body lengthen, and take a couple of breaths into that lengthened shape. And then ever so gently start to glide the palms back underneath the shoulders, reaching the elbows back, and pause once the hands make it to the shoulders, and notice that sensation of the shoulder blades gently drawing down the back and how that energizes the spine, so you can lengthen and hover the head. Keep the gaze down so that there's no pinching in the back of the neck. And then let's repeat that, releasing down, gliding hands forward, stretching long, and then gliding the hands back, waking up the back body, floating the heart and head. Take one more on your own. And then set the head down. The arms can do whatever's comfortable, so they can stay where they are, or they can stack and elbows can come wide. We're going to bring some attention down into the hips and the legs. So take a moment to reach the tailbone straight back. And when you do this, you might feel a little bit of integration and awareness building at the center. Oh. And then keep your pelvis level in this way as you start to reach the right foot back and slightly up. And it should feel like it's hard to lift, like you can't lift it too high and then set it down. Try the other leg and repeat this a few times, trying to feel the muscles that have to wake up to lift the leg without moving the pelvis. For me, I feel the work in my glutes at the back of the hip. If you don't feel that, you can get a little more dramatic by tucking the tailbone to restrict the movement of the pelvis, but I prefer a gentler, more neutral approach if you can find it. One more time to each side, and then relax completely. As you relax, the heels might fall out slightly, let the low back soften, and if it feels okay, you can imagine you're like wagging your tail a little bit. This helps me release my SI joint and my lumbar vertebra. And then come to center, let yourself relax. Take a moment to set that seed of intention either into the heart or into the navel of investing in that feeling that you want to experience this year. And then bring the hands underneath the shoulders and push into them to send the hips back to the heels. Make sure the blocks are nearby. You can bring them onto the mat just so they're more convenient, and then press all the way back to Bhaktasana. Push down into the shins and start to round forward and up into cat pose, and notice that same hollow quality that we found in kneeling, where you can push down into the shins and down into the palms and feel a gentle suction of the front edge of the body lifting and puffing up the back edge of the body. Keep that sense of rounding as the hips reach towards the heels, but don't make it all the way. You might even feel the work increase a little bit at your center. And then push down into the shins so you can slowly roll forward all the way into cat with shoulders over wrists. From this point, start to drag the hands back without actually moving them. Lengthen the heart forward into cow pose. And then try this a couple of times, pushing into the hands to round, send the hips back, not quite touching, so there's a lot more activity here than a Bhaktasana. And then push down into the shins, reversing that motion, being kind of slow and dramatic as the impulse signals for the spine to start to lengthen. Take one more on your own. And then the next time you're forward in your cow pose, take a little extra weight in the left knee, and without moving the pelvis at all, start to glide the right foot back as if the rest of the body doesn't know that the right leg is moving. And then inhale, pull the knee back underneath you, and do this a couple of times. Moving on the exhale. It's fine to move on the inhale as well. Just choose one part of the breath. Start to feel what muscles work to stabilize as that right leg almost like disappears behind you. And the next time the leg is behind you, make any adjustments so the hands and knee, lower your blocks to the lowest height and bring your hands up on the blocks. They can be wherever is comfortable. If you have sensitive wrists, sometimes having the hands forward of the blocks so the fingers curl over the edge can take some of the flexion out of the wrist, and that can feel nice, so feel free to try that. Mom, bring the blocks further back so they're right underneath your shoulders and not ahead of you, so just like a tabletop. So we're in tabletop, hands are on the blocks and the right leg is still extended. So now imagine you're still on the floor and your pelvis is neutral, and we'll do that exact same leg lifting that we did on the floor. So start to hover the back leg and try to keep the pelvis steady. So it doesn't matter how high the leg lifts, but you want to feel almost that localized work. A good clue that you're doing it right is that the left hip will start to warm because it's working so hard to stabilize you. We're going to massage that out in 1 second. Take one more lift. You can pause, lengthen the space from the crown of the head to the heel, and then set the toes of the right foot down, flex them under, shift the weight into the right hand, and draw a big circle. Left hand forward, up and back. Take a couple of circles here just to massage out the left side of the body, especially that left hip. And the next time the hand comes down to the block, tuck both sets of toes underneath, hover the left knee, and start to push into the hands to lift the hips up and back into a staggered down dog. I love doing down dog with my hands on blocks because I find that there's a lot more strength in the legs and it feels so nice and light in the arms. You can take some sways through the hips, shifting the weight from foot to foot. And then we'll do that sequence one more time. So lower the left knee down, coming to your three-legged table. Start to pulse the right leg up without moving the pelvis, creating that warmth in the left hip or wherever you feel it. And then bring the right toes down, shift the weight into the right hand, 1 or 2 big circles. And then touch the hand to the block, tuck the left toes under, lift the hips up and back, and take a couple of your sways or just hold steady and use the blocks to help lift and reach the hips long, letting the spine lengthen, letting the armpits stretch. And then lower left knee down, bring right knee into meet. And if it's comfortable, you can slide the blocks forward just a little bit and melt into Bhaktasana with the hands on the blocks. That's going to increase the stretch on the arms. So if it feels like too much, just slide the hands off the blocks. That's fine. And breathe into the heart. Breathe into the back body. And then imagine your hands are like little, I'm going to say crabs because they're cuter than spiders, and let them gently crawl in towards the head and then in towards the shoulders so you have a little extra support, and then push into the fingertips. So you slowly come to seated on the heels, walk the hands all the way into the thighs, and we're going to just do one of those movements from the beginning of class where you round the spine, push down into the shins and the fingertips. Feel how the exhale allows the body to hollow out. And then push down into the shins, send the hips forward, and let the progression travel up the spine without too much effort. And the hands just follow, and you've totally let go. You're trusting the flow through the body. And then we'll bring the hands back to the blocks. And at the risk of being slightly asymmetrical, we'll change to the second track for the second side of our sequence. Oh, what track were you? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we had the wrong track here, so maybe it was working for you where you were, but it wasn't working for me. So take a moment to find your neutral table and then start to glide the left foot back this time. And then bring it back in, and if you want to sync it with the breath, it's up to you whether the movement comes on an inhale. That's going to help create that pressurized system in the core, and if it comes on the exhale, that can help create a little extra length in the psoas. So it's all good. And the next time the leg comes behind you, pause there. Make sure you feel supported with the limbs that are touching the earth. And then we play with those leg lifts without tipping the pelvis, right? So resist any urge to lift the leg high. If you're feeling this in your low back, it means you're tipping the pelvis. I feel like it took me so long to figure out how to activate the muscles here. And the real secret is to not lift the leg as high, to release that sense of doership, and to really allow the body to do its thing without the mind getting in the way. Take one more, and then tuck the left toes under, shift the weight into the left hand, big circle, right hand goes forward, up and back. Take a couple of those and do anything with the left hand that helps the wrist feel comfortable. Keep a little bend in that elbow. And then the next time the right hand comes down, tuck both sets of toes under, lift the hips into the staggered down dog. Take a couple of sways. And then lower the right knee down so we can prepare to do it again. So we start with the leg lifts. Take your time. You can start to visualize that long line from the heel up to the crown. Try to feel what the pelvis and the spine are doing. And remember, less is more. And I feel like that's such a good lesson for our New Year's resolutions. We don't have to force these things to happen. We just set ourselves in the right direction and then take little steps. Maybe one thing a day, one breath a day. And the next time the toes come down, tuck both sets of toes under, shift the weight into the left hand, draw your circle. And then bring the right hand to the block, hover the knees, push into the hands to send the hips up and back. You can hold steady here or take some gentle sways. And then lower the right knee down, lower the left knee down. This time, let's turn the blocks up to the medium height. So it's the skinniest edge is going to be pointed upward and they're a little bit higher. Press the hips back to the heels. Take one moment in Bhaktasana. And then crabby hands start to crawl back towards the thighs. Just taking one moment to set our intention with that rounding and inward focus. And then let go of it and sort of trust the progression as you push down into the shins, letting the spine and arms flow upward. And then bring the hands to the blocks. And we'll upgrade our waving vinyasa now with slightly higher blocks. So push into the hands, sending the hips back towards the heels. Start to round the spine, feeling that sense of hollowness. And then push down into the shins, slowly waving forward. Tuck the toes under and start to kick into the big toe so you have a little bit more acceleration through the hips. The hips can lower a little bit this time and bend the elbow, almost like a tricep dip here or a nice easy chaturanga. Don't go too far. And then with that little bend of the elbows, traction the hands back, let the spine lengthen, nice, and find as even and smooth of an upward facing dog as you can. And then let's try that again. So rounding back, hips towards the heels, push into the big toes. That's the impulse that sends the spine forward. Stay rounded forward, suctioning front edge of body to back edge. And then as you come forward, the hips lower, soft elbows, and traction the hands back to get as much length as possible.